this will be a whole new offering and probably tap into a market that Nike and other sports apparel companies really haven't before.
You know what the contract is?
I want to say it's $3 million a year for 8 to 10 years. It's almost $30 million, something like.
Nike has finally come to a brutal realization, and they've just flipped the script on Adidas with a bold move, signing Caitlyn Clark to a groundbreaking contract. But that's not all. Nike isn't just securing Clark with a revised deal, they're also taking legal action against Adidas for attempting to interfere with their agreement. This power play has sent shockwaves through the sports world.
These leftists are idiots. Idiots. They're not about business. They're not about growing the WNBA. They're about diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is insanity, what they're doing to Caitlyn Clark.
Legally, it's a no-brainer. Two major brands can't just start meddling in each other's athlete roster like that. Now, Adidas is backtracking, saying they only made Clark an offer which she ultimately declined. But let's be honest, they're up against Nike, the biggest player in the industry.
I will say that Caitlyn Clark has created more buzz around the basketball landscape and has actually transformed and revived a league that was the WNBA, and she is getting paid a measly $28 million for 8 years as opposed to Wemby's 100.
Watching this battle unfold has been oddly satisfying. In the end, Nike was smart enough not to let their golden goose slip away. But let's not forget how the internet had a field day roasting Nike for nearly dropping the ball in the first place. It's been a chaotic, yet entertaining spectacle all around.
Nike struck absolute gold when they signed Caitlyn Clark to an 8-year, $28 million endorsement deal. So why in the world? And with that, Nike has not done one thing to promote her. We have not seen any commercials, we have not seen any ads, we have not seen any Caitlyn Clark merchandise, and we for sure as hell have not seen any Caitlyn Clark signature.
I almost feel bad for Adidas. Almost. All they tried to do was scoop up what Nike completely overlooked. And honestly, they nearly pulled it off. This wasn't just some random Twitter gossip either. This was the real deal, and it came with some serious fire. Adidas threw everything they had at Caitlyn Clark, like they were staging a full-on sneaker coup. People were stunned because this wasn't just another casual endorsement. It was a bold takeover attempt. Adidas wasn't playing nice. They saw an opening and went for it, all while Nike was caught sleeping.
Might not get a signature shoe from Caitlyn until 2026 or 2027. I didn't mean for this video to turn into a rant, but this is just another example about how people have fumbled the gift that is.
Here's where it gets even more interesting. Nike had Caitlyn Clark locked in, but instead of celebrating her as the basketball powerhouse she is, they completely dropped the ball. They promised her a signature shoe line set to launch in 2024, but in typical Nike fashion, the rollout was a disaster.
Praise the commercials, the ads, the merch, like all of the things that she should have gotten during this rookie season. Nike hasn't produced one ad or commercial featuring Clark since she turned pro, and despite a signature shoe being part of Nike's agreement with Clark,
based on conversations with people in the know, it indeed has something to do with the WNBA MVP and Nike athlete A'ja Wilson. But beyond Wilson, it's about the culture at the company that's more concerned with quelling noise rather than making it, as Nike once used to.
Not just a slight mix-up, nope. They've pushed the release all the way to 2026, maybe even 2027. That's not just a delay, it's a full-blown breach of contract in bold letters. How do you even mess that up?
Shoe, I would wear.
It seems like Nike decided to release A'ja Wilson's shoe first. Why, you ask? Well, she's the MVP, and unlike Caitlyn Clark, there's no controversy linked to her name. That's the kind of behind-the-scenes thinking going on, playing it safe with Wilson, while seemingly ignoring the fact that Clark has an enormous fanbase ready to blow up the internet for her shoe. Surprised? Here's the kicker. According to insiders, Nike didn't make this decision based on merit or sales potential alone. Nope. They moved A'ja Wilson's shoe ahead because, brace yourself, she didn't have the same racial tension surrounding her name as Caitlyn Clark. Let that sink in for a second. Despite Clark's massive following, Nike thought it was a safer bet to delay her shoe release, all because of a media-fueled narrative. Talk about playing it safe in the most baffling way possible.
Player in the WNBA, yes. Is Caitlyn Clark currently the face of the WNBA? Yes. Do I think if A'ja Wilson dropped a shoe and Caitlyn Clark dropped a shoe today at the very same time, that Caitlyn Clark would outsell Asia's shoe by 100 times.
While Nike fumbled Caitlyn Clark's shoe deal, Adidas wasn't sitting idle. The moment they saw Nike dragging their feet, Adidas swooped in with a massive offer. Bigger money, better perks. Everything Nike should have done from the beginning, but didn't. Adidas recognized the golden opportunity and didn't waste a moment making their move.
The hype that Caitlyn Clark had going into this season, we will not see that again. She came off of playing in a national championship game that had over 20 million people.
Here's how Adidas truly stood out. They gave Clark full creative control over her own marketing strategy. While Nike was tangled in corporate bureaucracy, Adidas made a bold move, offering Clark the kind of freedom athletes rarely experience. This wasn't just about wearing their shoes. It was about empowering Clark to design her own campaigns, shape her personal brand, and connect directly with her rapidly growing fan base. Nike never saw it coming.
She deserves it! She deserves it!
And then there's the shoe release timeline. Remember how Nike kept delaying Clark's signature shoe, pushing the release from 2024 to 2025, and possibly even 2026? Well, Adidas wasn't playing that game. They committed to a much faster release, ensuring her fans wouldn't be waiting around for years to get their hands on her kicks. Adidas understood one thing clearly. Clark's fans weren't going to wait forever. They were ready for the shoe, and Adidas made sure it was coming soon, while Nike was still tangled in their launch strategy, figuring things out.
Winning unanimous WNBA Rookie of the Year, they've got no plans for a Caitlyn Clark shoe. Why not? Well, the official reason from Nike is an obvious lie. What are they hiding? Is sports losing popularity? No, Adidas has done pretty well over that time despite ending their partnership.
Meanwhile, over at Nike, panic had fully set in. They were staring down the barrel of a potential PR disaster if Clark accepted Adidas's offer. Why? Because in a head-to-head shoe launch between Clark and A'ja Wilson, Clark would dominate without question. Her fan base was in a league of its own, and Nike knew that if both athletes' shoes were released at the same time, Clark's would fly off the shelves in a flash, leaving Wilson's to collect dust. Nike couldn't afford to let that happen. They scrambled into damage control mode, desperately trying to revive the original contract they had put on the back burner. After months of sidelining Clark, they were now rushing to get her shoe launch back on track for the promised 2024 release date, the one they had initially committed to but later abandoned. Suddenly, they were all hands on deck, doing whatever it took to get her shoe to market as quickly as possible, because they knew if Clark signed with Adidas, it would be a disaster they couldn't afford.
LeBron James had his own signature shoe his rookie year. So 20 years ago, Nike was nimble enough and had enough vision to see that, hey, let's get LeBron's shoe out here. This guy's going to be a big deal. They can't do this for Caitlyn Clark.
Let's be real for a moment. Was it a case of too little? Too late? Nike had already dropped the ball, and Caitlyn Clark's fan base wasn't thrilled with how she'd been treated. The frustration was palpable. Fans had witnessed Nike sideline Clark in favor of pushing Wilson, and now, with Adidas entering the scene, Nike started to look more like the villain in this narrative. This wasn't just about sneakers anymore. It had become a matter of loyalty, respect, and how Nike had mishandled its rising star behind the scenes. The real buzz around Adidas began to take off after a tweet from Billie Jean King, an Adidas ambassador. She openly praised Caitlyn Clark's accomplishments, and that's when things really started to heat up.
I want to say it's $3 million a year for 8 to 10 years. It's almost $30 million.
Insiders were buzzing about Nike's desperate attempt to salvage the deal. Word on the street was they were pulling out all the stops, offering everything from hefty bonuses and expedited production to a full-scale marketing blitz. It was clear Nike was throwing everything they had into the mix, hoping something would stick. They simply couldn't afford to lose Clark, not just because of her skills on the court, but because of what she symbolized off it. Losing her to Adidas wouldn't just be a blow to Nike's roster. It would be a significant hit to their image, especially with the racial and social issues already in the spotlight. Experts were saying this was all playing a crucial role.
A major endorsement deal with Adidas. This partnership is a game changer. It's a huge win for Clark and for women's basketball.
And as if the drama couldn't get any bigger, rumors of a brewing lawsuit started making the rounds. Nike wasn't just focused on mending the deal, they were gearing up to take legal action against Adidas. The accusation? Contract manipulation. Nike claimed that Adidas had violated key clauses in Clark's original contract with them. There was no way Nike was going to let Adidas swoop in and poach their athlete without a fight. Now, on top of everything else, a legal battle between two of the biggest sports brands in the world was looming.
This will be a whole new offering and probably tap into a market that Nike and other sports apparel companies really haven't before. Obviously, little girls are going to wear them. I think plenty of dudes are going to wear them. You're just going to see those things in high demand.
The battle had escalated far beyond just shoes. This had turned into an all-out corporate war. Adidas had made their move, and now Nike was desperately fighting to reclaim their dominance. The question of whether Nike could prevent Adidas from locking in Clark was still hanging in the balance, but one thing was crystal clear. Nike wasn't going down without a fight. And if anyone thought this wasn't a big deal, they needed to understand that these endorsement contracts were far from casual. They were ironclad. Athletes couldn't just switch brands on a whim, especially when an exclusivity clause was in play. Believe it or not, Nike included a specific clause in Caitlyn Clark's contract, one that clearly prohibits her from endorsing any other brand, especially their top competitor Adidas, while she's under contract. It's a pretty standard arrangement. But Adidas? Well, it seems they decided to test their luck anyway. So, what exactly is Adidas being accused of? Nike isn't throwing out vague accusations. They're genuinely outraged, and they have good reason. Rumor has it, Adidas has been quietly trying to woo Clark, suggesting she deserves more than what Nike's offering. Some even say Adidas may have offered a few under-the-table perks to sweeten the deal. Sure, the sports marketing game is ruthless, but this time Nike claims Adidas has crossed a major line.